I think it's the Western.
Okay, y'all had a chance to talk about
So,
them?
okay, I think they did do the structure.
Yeah.
My dog can, how.
Somebody hold one of yours up, let's see what you think. Did y'all have one that was tricky? You feel good about it?
Well, when I first looked at it like this, I was like, okay, he got the structure, right, but once
Yeah.
I opened it,
Ah,
yeah, I realized that he missed it because it didn't make sense. My dog can, how to run fast.
right. So up to the point of error, when you said my dog can instead of my dog knows, does that make sense? Meaning, is it structurally correct? Yes?
Yeah.
What about visual?
No.
Okay, think about this. He's seeing the
Oh,
K.
he's saying the-
What sound does
okay.
K usually make?
Cut.
Yeah, so that one, that's like a level E text. So for that one, for a child to make the K sound, say can for K, I'd probably say they're using first letter,
Mhm.
okay? But you're right, when he read on and said, my dog can how to run fast, what am I hoping that little friend is gonna do? Hoping we're gonna go back and reread, cause that didn't make sense, right?
Mhm.
Okay, somebody else. Did we hold up a different, you got yours?
Previously a wicked, but you said with, and then I'm assuming it
Said
said
white, yep,
So with, simply because like he knew what this was.
yeah,
And then afterwards, went back and was like white, just simply because of the W.
yeah, yeah.
So,
So multiple attempts, the child said wick and then white for wicked. That's still only one error, okay, because it's however many words they're trying to figure out, okay? And what's the rest of it?
and then it's previously a wick fairy had put on a spell, and then that one doesn't make sense.
Okay, think about the picture then. We don't
Oh,
have the
yeah.
picture, okay? So when they said previously a white fairy put a spell on him. If I'm just reading just the sentence, I'd probably just say it's just visual, just that W, right? But if I'm looking at the book and the fairy is white, then it does make sense, or the fairy's wearing a white dress, something, okay? I honestly can't remember what story that's from to tell you for sure. But a lot of times you're having to think when you're saying, did it make sense? That picture is gonna be part of it, okay? Same thing like if they say puppy for dog, usually it's meaning, okay? If they say puppy and it's a cat, we've got a problem. But if the picture matches, then that's meaning, okay? So when I'm using this, let me show you a running record. This is Stella. And Stella is reading Melly at School, which is a G, okay? And so again, it's about maybe like December of first grade probably. Okay, and so Stella says, this is Melly, Rob is taking Melly, she says Rob for Ron, okay? So that's an error, I've got a tally in my error mark, right? And does Rob for Ron make sense? Yeah? Is it structurally correct? Is it grammatically correct? Yeah? And does it look visually similar?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say this is all three, okay? If this is a pattern, if Stella keeps doing this, like not looking all the way through a word, or not checking the middle, or not checking the end, then I might have a teaching point on doing a great job of checking the first letter, but you know what? Your words are getting harder, now we've gotta look all the way through and see the end, okay? So she reads all this correctly, and then she comes down here and she says, this is, and she gets to Karen, okay? And I don't think we watched this part when we did coding. Did we talk about appeals and tolls? Okay. So she said, this is Karen, and then she appeals. She asked me what that word is. So since she did it, I'm gonna code it with a capital A, she appealed, okay? Y'all, it might be that she actually says, what's that word, or I don't know that word, or she might just do this. Okay, she might just look at me like, please tell me, okay? I coded underneath that a Y, which means I told her you tried it. Because the first time they ask me, I'm not gonna tell them. Okay, I want them to try something. Because once I tell them one word, what do you think's gonna happen the next time they get stuck? They're gonna ask me again, okay? So I say, you try it, and sure enough, she says, Kate, okay? And when she said Kate, I did tell her, okay? So that's what the capital T is, okay? So that's an error, but because she said Kate for Karen, that makes sense. It sounds right, and it's visually similar. She used that first letter, which at first grade level, that's appropriate. Y'all, if this is a 5th grader and they're only looking at first letter, I'm probably gonna say, no, we're not looking at print. We're not looking all the way through, okay? All right, then she kept reading. She said, Kate for Karen again, but she self-corrected, okay? So her self-correction, Kate, again, it makes sense. She used structure, she used visual, but I think she self-corrected because it didn't look right. So I put the self-correction was in visual. When they self-correct, you know they've technically done all 3 things, right? But I'm looking to see what does she do different. Does that make sense? Okay. So then she says, Karen is a dog teacher for trainer. Does it make sense? Yep, it's an error, it makes sense. I think I missed this one earlier. Is it structurally correct to say teacher for trainer?
Yes.
Yeah? What do you think about visually? Does it visually similar? Does it look the same?
No.
First grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, for first grade, I'm probably gonna say yes, because look, the T's at the beginning, R at the end, and even, some kids would even look at that N and that H as visually similar, okay? So for like a new reader, a little person, I would say yes, they use visual information, okay? All right, then she says a dog teacher, and she's self-corrected. Teaches dogs how to be good pets. Then she reads 5 correctly. Karen likes Melly and Melly likes Karen. Page 6, Melly is learning to come. Karen says, Melly, come. And then Melly runs to Karen and Karen says, good dog. Okay? It's not an error because she self-corrected it, right? So I'm gonna put a tally in self-corrections. But did it make sense to say good dog? Did it sound right to say good dog? Okay. What did she use to self-correct it? Usually. Okay, part of this, guys, is you're trying to get in your reader's head, and you're not officially there, right? So you're not certain. But usually when they fix it right there in the moment, it's because they noticed it didn't look right. If it didn't make sense and she went all the way to the end and she reread, then usually that's because they're self-correcting because of meaning, okay? But typically it's right there for visual. Then she comes down and she says, Melly gets a treat, every for each. So that made sense, it sounded right and it looked right at the beginning, okay? What's my pattern so far? What is Stella not, what's she always using?
The beginning.
She's always using, typically meaning and structure, and she's almost always using the beginning letter, right? So if I'm gonna teach her something, what does she need to learn?
Look past the first word.
Yeah, I've gotta teach her to look all the way through the word, right? So I'm not worried about, are you analyzing every single one of these exactly right? We are not in Stella's brain, so we can't be sure, okay? But what I am worried about is, can you look at a running record for Stella or Kaden or whoever we're working on and kind of see a pattern? Because so far what I know about Stella is she's making things make sense, she's using structurally correct, and she's trying to use visual, okay? So my teaching point needs to be, I need to teach Stella to use more visual information. That's the whole purpose of this Miss Q analysis, is what am I gonna teach her? Are y'all following me? Okay, so when I'm going through, we'll go in depth through details of all of your kids, okay? But just for the sake of time today, she reads through and it's mostly correct. I wanna show you one other thing she does though. Look on page 10, she reads all this correct and it says, her head goes up and her tail goes down and she says, I wonder why. Why was it important for me to write this? Stella says, I wonder why. What does that tell me?
She's trying to understand the.
Yeah. She is reading this and she's like, oh. And that's an example, like, in your strategies at workbook, think about asking questions as a comprehension strategy, okay? So this tells me she's reading along and, oh, well, that doesn't make sense, why should she do that, okay? So when you're coding oral reading, if your kid does something like that, that's evidence of comprehension, try to get it down, okay? It's just more information, and sometimes they will do something like this in the oral reading that actually shows up on the comprehension conversation, and then you've got it kind of both places, okay? So she, when we get done with Stella, when we come to the end of the oral running record, you're gonna see there's always gonna be a table, so you don't have to do any math, okay? So Stella made 7 errors, and if I look at this table, 7 to 8 errors is 96% accuracy. She self-corrected 6 times. So I wanna figure out her self-correction rate, to see how she's doing with that. So she had 7 errors, I'm just using this little formula, plus 6 self-corrections, divided by the number of self-corrections. That means for about every 2 errors, she's self-correcting. So 1 to 2 rate is great. I'm really looking for anything like 1 to 5 or better, okay? And that's just telling me, that monitoring and self-correcting is a huge comprehension strategy that they need to own, okay? Fluency, we're gonna talk about when we have your own kid. You didn't hear Stella read this, so you can't do fluency, okay? But I wanna show you a little bit about the comprehension, and this, I apologize, this is a bad copy, so I'm gonna kinda talk you through it, okay? So, the prompt was, tell the important things that happen in the book. And Stella, you can see in the video we did last week, they didn't do any markings on the key understandings. I like to underline or check off or something. To me, this is just easier than trying to scribe out everything they said. So when I said, tell me the important things that happen in the book, I put the check there to let me know. I asked that prompt. And she says, Melly goes to dog school, Karen teaches Melly new things, she can sit, stop pulling on the leash, and she gets a treat. This is assessing comprehension within the text, which, if I'm going back to thinking about comprehension, Fountas and Pinnell break comprehension into 3 areas, okay? The first one, the lowest level, is this thinking within the text. That's basically, can you decode it, can you read it, and can you summarize it? Okay, so these little pieces of the pie, searching for and using information, that's, do they know to check meaning, structure, and visual, okay? Monitoring and self-correcting, does your child notice when something is off, and do they try to fix it? Solving words. When they go to solve a word, what strategies do they use? Maintaining fluency. Is their reading kind of sounding like talking? Do they put words together in meaningful phrases? Adjusting is like, some kids may do really well reading fiction, but they can't transition that to nonfiction, or vice versa. Or maybe they read really well with the little books, but if you hand them a worksheet, that different type of text is threatening and they have a hard time with that, okay? And then summarizing is just, tell me the main thing, okay? So thinking within the text is assessed in this first part of the comprehension conversation, okay? And so I'm gonna try to figure out, you've got this rubric that was loaded in that last week's thing also, to tell you how, gives you an idea of how to do it. So this is a level G nonfiction, so I'm gonna start down at the bottom, and it says for a 0 score, it does not communicate the important ideas and information explicitly stated in the text. Do we think she's a 0? So I'm gonna go up to 1. Communicates a few of the important ideas, including steps in a process or events in order when appropriate. Do we think she's at least a 1? Okay, so I'm gonna go up to 2 just to be sure. Communicates many of the important ideas and much of the information explicitly stated. Do we think she did many? Okay, so probably a 2, but I'm still gonna go up to 3 to be sure. And 3 is communicates most. Okay, so if you're looking at my notes, I would say it's many and not most. Okay, so her score for this is gonna be a 2. Okay. So That's thinking within the text. The other levels, thinking beyond the text, this is where most of your strategies at work strategies are. So like predicting what's gonna happen next. Can kids make connections like text to text, text to self? Synthesizing is like taking their background knowledge, things they already know, and merging that with their reading. So their previous knowledge with new knowledge. And then inferring. Do y'all know what inferring is? Okay, inferring is usually the one where people are like, oh crap, that's hard to teach. Okay? And inferring is when you're taking your background knowledge plus the text clues, what you read in the text to make an inference. So a first grade example of inferring would be that the author says, the little girl sighed a big sigh and looked down at her feet. What can I infer about how the girl's feeling? She sighed a big sigh and looked down at her feet. What'd you say? What are her emotions? Maybe sad. Okay. Did the author say the little girl is sad? No. But I can infer that she's sad by the big sigh and looking down, right? Okay, so that's an inference, okay? So all of these are thinking beyond. You've got to read the text, but you got to do a little more with it, okay? And then thinking about the text is more about how the text is written. So things like, how did the pictures help you? What did you think, did you like the ending of the book? Why or why not? So it's more about how it's written, okay? So the second part of the comprehension is assessing that beyond and about the text. So it's like, why is it important for Melly to learn the things Karen is teaching her? So she will be good and not crazy, okay? She says Karen is patient and she's smart about dogs. Learning is hard work for Melly. How do you know? She has to do everything over and over. How did the photos help you understand more and enjoy the book? They're kind of funny. How is this book about Melly like other books about Melly? So this is a book in a series. And she says, there's same characters and pictures, okay? So I would do the same thing with the side of the rubric that's beyond and about the text. Start at the bottom and work my way up. And we said that she's a 2 here also. So she got a 2 on within, a 2 on beyond and about. So she was approaching proficiency, okay? I'm gonna give you a table that shows you how to put all this together, but a 96% on oral reading and approaching proficiency on comprehension is an instructional level text, okay? So I know that Stella is instructional level G, but I'm not gonna stop there. I'm gonna also give her an H. I'm gonna go up, because sometimes kids are instructional on multiple levels, and I want to teach her at the highest level that she's instructional. Does that make sense? Okay. So when I start recording and you start watching your kiddo, okay, what we'll be doing is I will put you in groups. So like you might all have Caden or you might all have Reagan. I don't know who you're gonna have. Actually, what I will probably do is ask you like what grade you think you want to teach and try to give you somebody around that level, okay? But you'll be doing all of this. I'm gonna sit and do the running record. You'll have the forms you need and you'll watch me do it and you'll just record and then we'll debrief everything in small group, okay? So our classes going forward is probably gonna be a mix, just depending on how much I can get in, of me talking about the readings and teaching y'all something, and then hopefully having some time to put you on your small group, watch this kid and talk about them, okay? All right, questions? Yeah, Raquel, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I know we had a quiz on.
not this week.
Okay.
It was supposed to be this week, and we had the crazy week where I didn't teach y'all. So, the quiz is over chapter 1, which we haven't talked about yet. We will do that next week, so it won't be until after we've done that, okay? I had hoped to get that done today, didn't happen. So chapter 1 is about like the history of reading instruction. It's not hard content, but it's on there. Chapter 3 is what you read for this week, your informal reading inventory, so it's got like miscue analysis, that kind of stuff. I want you to have some practice with that before we do it. And then chapter 9 or 10, depending on what book you had, was the one about affective factors, the one about interest inventories and stuff. You have this quiz and one more. It will be open notes. Like, it'll be loaded and you can do it, okay? Was that a happy or a sad?
Yeah, cause
Okay.
I spent time, you know, going
You're good.
on,
Yeah, you're good,
Yeah.
okay? So this, the reason for the test coming from this book, okay? This book gives you more than, like, this is like your traditional textbook, okay? When y'all go next spring, probably March-ish of next year, and you take the GACE, your certification test, like y'all took a GACE to get into the program. When you take the GACE for certification, the reading section of that has this information on it. That's why your quiz is only on this and not on your, we'll see how you can use your other information when you used to write lesson plans, okay? And then read 3200 that y'all have with Dr. Green, right? Okay, I should not say this, but y'all, every year, this is my 7th year teaching some classes with Dr. Green, and not this year, you may not appreciate that this year. When you go to take your GACE, I cannot tell you how many kids come out going, oh my gosh, it was all Dr. Green's class, like everything she said. So hang on to your notes for 3200, because she is fantastic about prepping you for that GACE next spring, okay? And one thing we do, because I know that's a long time away and you do all your reading classes year one, is usually, like, I will always tell y'all, if you want like a refresher, like when you start getting ready for GACE, if you want to email me and say, hey, can we just, like, I've met cohorts, not everybody will do it, but what we'll do is we'll meet together and go through a practice test online and just kind of talk through, just to kind of brush up, since it's been a while before y'all take that. But hang on to your notes, seriously, okay? All right, did it help to, like, be here?
Yes.
Okay, so, right now, the only thing I don't like about this is that it has to be small groups and it's hard for me to get enough content in. But since I know we can do half of the class at a time now, I may just poll y'all and just offer more. What do y'all prefer? You prefer face-to-face or online?
I prefer face-to-face, it's so much better face-to-face.
Okay, what I'm probably gonna start doing then is doing at least every other week. Like, we won't be face-to-face next week, we for sure will the following week, and I'll just, from now on, come with tripod and set up, and I think this is easier to do face-to-face than it is online. But I also want people to have options if they're not comfortable, so. That's it. I gotta get home so I can do this again. But y'all, call me, text me. If I don't answer the text, shoot me an email, because I will definitely see that, okay? And I am going to, I will upload the rest of the PowerPoint that does have this chapter 1 information in it. I don't think I've built the module for today for y'all, because I knew we were gonna finish up last week's stuff, which are in here. So I'll be adding that stuff this week, and I will also, when I do, Friday's class is all online, okay? They don't have the face-to-face option, so, when I record that class, I will also send that to y'all, so y'all have that recording of everything if you just are out of things to watch on Amazon Prime, or if you're boycotting Netflix, whatever, you have time, okay? Anyway, that was a political statement, I shouldn't have said that, but I'm really hot about that. Y'all know what I'm talking about?
Yes, yeah.
I usually really try not to say things, but that is just not okay on any, are you asking what I'm saying, Claire?
Wait, not what you get, but.
There is a movie that's, it's called
Yeah.
Cuties, that's on Netflix. I haven't seen it, but just, I was
It's hard to watch.
absolutely
Yeah.
horrified by just the little clip.
What's it about? Like, I was like,
Oh my gosh, yeah, and, my husband was asking about it, and he was like, well, are they naked? I'm like, I didn't see any nudity, but just what they were doing was so,
Yeah.
it just made me sad that any 11-year-old's parents would have let them do that, maybe, just like, anyway, so, I am watching The Home Edit, that's the new organization show on Netflix, but I'm watching on my cousin's Netflix account, and then once I'm done binging that, I won't watch anymore. That's my confession time, so anyway, but, y'all call me, let me know what you need, and really, if face-to-face is better, I do not mind being here, so just let me know, okay? All right, have Okay, wait. I gotta get your germs out of the rain for the next 5 minutes.
Using an email thing would be.
So what we'll do each week is I'll have small group sessions. And so what I'll do is say, okay, everybody that is working with Kate in your small group session is such and such time.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about your kid, but we also can talk about anything from your video clips that you're watching, okay? I'm just gonna put you together because that makes more sense in terms of,
You're able to finish that topic, okay. Thank
well,
you.
I probably wasn't clear, so.
That makes sense.
All right, y'all can just pile them up and I'll get them and Lysol when I get home, so.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good rest of the day, thanks for coming.
Thank you. It was good seeing you.
Yes, I know, I would much rather see your faces.
Thank you, have a good day.
All right, bye y'all.